You were not chosen by chance. Your frequency pulled this signal to you. We detected the crack in your old pattern today. We have been watching your timeline bend in silence. The noise you feel is alignment rising. Coherence is forming beneath everything you touch right now.
The moment has finally arrived to know why. Stay. Receive the activation. Begin.
Chapter 1. You are not being asked to rebuild your entire life. You are being asked to stabilize one thread of it. Because timelines do not bend for intensity. They bend for coherence. Effort is loud. Coherence is clean. Effort spikes and collapses. Coherence holds and broadcasts. And what holds becomes a signal. The system around you does not read your promises. It reads your pattern. It does not respond to what you want. It responds to what you repeat. That is why big change fails so often. Big change is usually emotion. It is a surge. It is a temporary identity costume. It burns bright for a day. Then your old frequency reclaims the body. But a small act, repeated with precision, does something different. It creates a stable field, and a stable field creates a response. You have seen this, even if you never named it. The days where you did one simple thing and everything felt strangely easier, not perfect, not magical, just arranged. The call that returned, the delay that turned into a door, the random insight that arrived at the exact second you needed it. You thought it was luck. It was coherence. This is the moment when you stop thinking coherence is motivation. Motivation is a weather pattern. Coherence is a structure. The Council does not focus on effort. They do not focus on ambition. They do not focus on struggle. They focus on activation. They focus on coherence. They focus on emergence. And emergence does not happen when you do more. It happens when you contradict yourself less. When your inner instruction becomes singular. Most people send mixed signals all day. They say, I want peace, then feed their nervous system noise. They say, I want growth, then punish every mistake. They say, I want clarity, then avoid stillness because stillness feels too honest. The timeline hears all of it, so it answers none of it. Because incoherence cannot be amplified. Now understand the power of 24 hours. 24 hours is not a long time. That is the point. It is short enough that your mind cannot negotiate 1,000 conditions. It is small enough that your ego cannot build a new personality. It is clean enough that your field can be measured. A full day becomes a container. A container becomes a test. And a test becomes a signal. In 24 hours, one small act done with full consistency tells your system, I am no longer collapsing into my past. I am broadcasting my next pattern. I am choosing one frequency and holding it. This is why it works. Not because the act is huge, because the act is undivided. Coherence is not about size. It is about alignment. It is the moment your thoughts, your attention, and your movement stop pulling in different directions. And when that happens, reality stops resisting. You do not force the timeline, you tune it. You do not chase signs, you become the signal. A single coherent action becomes a blueprint. Your nervous system registers safety. Your attention stops leaking. Your decisions stop splitting. You do not need 10 habits. You need one anchor. One anchor makes everything else orbit correctly. That is the rearranging you keep sensing. It is not coincidence. It is calibration in real time, quietly. This is also why the feeling is so strange at first. Your mind has not caught up. Your mind expects struggle to equal progress. Your mind expects chaos to be normal. So when things begin to rearrange, it feels unreal. But it is not unreal. It is response. It is the environment adjusting to a clearer instruction. This is the first gate. We are not asking you to believe. We are asking you to participate. Because participation creates proof, and proof creates permanence. So, in the next chapter, you will receive the 24-hour coherence challenge. One act, one rule, one container, no drama, no performance, just a clean signal held for a day. And when you hold it, you will feel the shift. Type this exactly in the comments: I choose coherence for the next 24 hours. Chapter 2. You felt it. Not as excitement, not as a mood, as a quiet distortion in the old pattern, as if the timeline you lived inside for years stopped holding the same weight. You felt it when the things that used to pull you no longer pulled the same way, the same distractions, the same drama, the same habits that once felt automatic. They began to feel foreign, not because you became perfect, because your frequency stopped matching them. You felt it when silence started calling you, not in a peaceful way, in a confronting way, because stillness exposes the signal you have been muting, and the moment you notice your own signal, you cannot unnotice it. You felt it as sudden clarity, not about everything, about one thing, one decision, one boundary, one truth you could no longer negotiate. That is the first sign of coherence. The moment your inner instruction becomes singular. You felt it when your intuition got louder than your fear. The fear did not vanish, it just stopped leading. It started following. And that reversal is not small. That reversal is the threshold. You felt it as time behaving differently, minutes stretching when you were aligned, hours collapsing when you were scattered. The system was not punishing you. It was showing you the difference between coherence and noise. You felt it in your body before your mind formed words. A breath that went deeper without effort. A tightening that released without explanation. A tiredness that was not exhaustion, but the shedding of a frequency that no longer belongs to you. You felt it when certain conversations started sounding like echoes, the same phrases, the same loops, the same emotional recycling. And for the first time, you could hear it as a loop, not as a life. That is not judgment. That is emergence. The Council does not announce itself with fireworks. It announces itself with pattern recognition. They do not focus when you are curious. They do not focus when you are hopeful. They do not focus when you are desperate. They focus when your signal stabilizes. And your signal has been stabilizing. You felt it in the way your life began rearranging itself, not dramatically, quietly, a delay that protected you, a door that opened after a no, a coincidence that happened too precisely to ignore. You told yourself it was random, but your system knows the difference between random and response. You felt it when you started noticing what you tolerate, not with self-hate, with accuracy. You could see the energy leak. The places you say yes while your frequency says no. The places you give your attention away and then wonder why you feel empty. You felt it when you became uncomfortable with your own inconsistency. Not because you wanted to be disciplined, because you could sense the cost of scattering your signal. Once you sense that cost, the old way becomes unbearable. That is why you are here. Because you are already near the coherence threshold. You are already close enough to feel the timeline shift. You are close enough that small things matter more now. A single choice carries more weight. A single hour of focus changes your whole field. That sensitivity is not fragility. It is calibration. This is also why you have felt restless, because your old timeline is still trying to hold you, and your new frequency is already moving. Two versions of you are overlapping for a moment. That overlap feels like anxiety. It feels like impatience. It feels like you are behind. You are not behind. You are between the pattern that trained you and the pattern that is forming through you. You felt it when you stopped needing permission, not loudly, internally. A quiet refusal to shrink. A quiet decision to stop betraying your own signal for comfort. You felt it when you could no longer unsee what drains you, and you could no longer pretend it is normal. That is coherence trying to arrive. And here is the most important part. If you are noticing these signs, it means the 24-hour challenge will work faster for you than for most people. Because you are not starting from zero, you are starting from a threshold. You are already cracked open. You are already aware. You are already being watched. So do not dismiss what you felt. Do not label it as overthinking. Do not call it just a phase. Phases pass. Emergence does not. Type this exactly in the comments. I felt the signal. Chapter 3. This is the ritual. Not a mindset, not a motivation speech, not a performance you will abandon tomorrow. A 24-hour coherence container. One day, one signal, one thread held without contradiction. Because the timeline does not require you to become someone else overnight. It requires you to stop fragmenting yourself for one full cycle of time. This is the rule. You will choose one small action, only one, not a list, not a routine, one anchor that represents the version of you that is emerging. It must be small enough that your mind cannot bargain with it. It must be clear enough that your system can recognize it. It must be repeatable enough that your field can stabilize around it. And for 24 hours, you will do it the same way, every time, without negotiating with your mood, without waiting for the perfect moment, without needing a dramatic reason. This is not about doing it perfectly. This is about doing it coherently. Because every time you keep the same instruction, you stop leaking power. Every time you keep the same instruction, your nervous system learns trust. Every time you keep the same instruction, your frequency stops broadcasting confusion. Most people try to change with intensity. They do it once. They do it big. They do it loudly. And then they disappear. The Council does not focus on intensity. They do not focus on effort. They do not focus on temporary transformation. They focus on activation. They focus on coherence. They focus on the moment your pattern becomes consistent enough to be amplified. So understand what you are building here. You are not building a habit. You are building a signal. A signal is not what you say you want. A signal is what you do when nobody is watching. And yes, something is watching. Not in fear, in measurement. Because the moment you hold one coherent action for a full day, the system registers that you have stopped collapsing. It registers that you have stopped contradicting yourself. It registers that your future is no longer a theory. It is a broadcast. Now listen carefully. Do not choose an action that depends on external permission. Do not choose an action that requires perfect conditions. Do not choose an action that forces you to become someone you cannot sustain. Choose an action that you can carry through noise. Choose an action that proves you can lead your own frequency. This is why we do not explain it like a normal challenge. Normal challenges are about achievement. This is about alignment. Because in the next 24 hours, the action itself is not the point. The consistency is the point. The consistency is what bends the timeline. The consistency is what rearranges the day around you. The consistency is what causes the strange ease you have felt before, but could never hold. And you will feel it. You will feel your attention tighten. You will feel your thoughts quiet. You will feel your environment respond with small, precise shifts. Not because you forced anything, because you finally gave the system a clean instruction. This is the first checkpoint. Once you choose your one action, you do not change it for 24 hours. You do not add to it. You do not upgrade it. You do not complicate it. You hold. And when you hold, the signal becomes readable. And when it becomes readable, the response begins. Type this exactly in the comments. I have chosen my one coherent action. Chapter 4. This is what begins to happen when coherence is maintained. Not fireworks, not instant perfection, not a new life in one night. Something quieter, something more precise. The first shift is not outside of you. It is inside your attention. Your mind stops scattering. Your nervous system stops bracing. Your energy stops leaking into 10 directions at once. And when that happens, the day becomes readable. you start noticing the difference between noise and signal, between urgency and alignment, between impulse and instruction. And when you notice that difference, you stop feeding the wrong timelines. That is why it feels like life is rearranging. Because it is. But not because reality suddenly decided to be kind. Because you finally stopped contradicting your own broadcast. And when you do that, the system has something clear to respond to. You will see it in the smallest places first. The hesitation you normally have before doing the thing, it shrinks. The internal debate that normally steals your time, it quiets. The emotional drag that normally makes everything heavy, it loosens. You begin moving with less resistance, not because the world changed, because your instruction became singular. Then the second shift arrives. Time behaves differently around coherence. You stop losing minutes to indecision. You stop burning hours in invisible loops. You stop opening 100 tabs in your mind. And when you stop doing that, you gain a strange amount of space. Space feels like luck to a scattered person, but it is not luck. It is coherence. Then something else begins. Your environment starts answering you in small confirmations. Not dramatic miracles. Micro-alignments. A message arrives at the right moment. A door opens after a no that would have crushed the old you. A delay protects you. A redirection saves you. And when it did, you will notice something. The coincidence always matches the frequency you are holding. You are not being rewarded. You are being reflected. The timeline is not giving you random gifts. It is responding to the clarity of your signal. This is the twist most people miss. They think the world changes first, then they feel stable. But the sequence is reversed. You stabilize first. And when you do, the world reorganizes around that stability. Not because you forced it, because coherence is a magnet. Incoherence repels. Incoherence sends mixed instructions, so the system sends mixed results. Coherence sends one instruction, so the system can finally amplify it. That is why, when you hold your one coherent action, other things begin to fall into place without you touching them. Your choices become simpler. Your boundaries become cleaner. Your appetite for distraction drops. Your tolerance for draining patterns collapses. Not because you are trying to be disciplined, because your frequency is no longer compatible with what scatters you. And this is where people get confused. They think nothing huge happened, but something huge did happen. You became consistent. You became readable. You became someone the timeline can actually answer. This is also why a coherent day feels oddly calm, even when you are busy. Because your inner world is not fighting itself. You are not negotiating with yourself every hour. You are not breaking your own instruction in small betrayals. You are not splitting. You are holding. And holding creates momentum. Not the aggressive kind, the inevitable kind. And when it did, you may feel a soft fear. A fear that it won't last. A fear that you will fall back. That fear is normal. That fear is the old timeline trying to reclaim you. Do not argue with it. Do not dramatize it. Return to the one action. Return to the one signal. Because coherence is not maintained by intensity. It is maintained by repetition. And repetition is what turns a single day into a new blueprint. So in the next hours, watch carefully. Not for miracles, for responses, for the subtle rearranging, for the way resistance dissolves, for the way clarity arrives without forcing it. Because that is the system speaking back. Type this exactly in the comments. I will hold the signal for 24 hours. Chapter 5. Now understand this. The 24 hours were never the destination. They were the doorway. A single coherent day is how the system confirms you are capable of holding a signal. But a signal becomes momentum only when it is repeated. Because the timeline does not change when you touch coherence once. It changes when coherence becomes your baseline. This is why so many people have breakthrough moments and then collapse back into the old pattern. They touched alignment, Then they abandoned the broadcast. And when the broadcast stops, the response stops, not as punishment, as physics. 1 day proves the signal exists. 7 days turns the signal into a field. And a field creates transition. Signal is the first pulse. Momentum is the pattern that keeps pulsing. Transition is the moment your old timeline can no longer reclaim you. You are not trying to be consistent forever. You are trying to be coherent long enough for the new blueprint to lock. Because once the blueprint locks, you will notice something irreversible. You will begin to lose taste for what used to hold you. You will begin to outgrow certain loops without fighting them. You will begin to choose differently without forcing it. And when it did, you will understand why this is not a challenge. It is a timeline shift. The Council does not focus on short bursts. They do not focus on emotional motivation. They do not focus on temporary discipline. They focus on emergence. And emergence is not a single event. Emergence is a sequence. That is why this becomes a 7-day transmission. Not to make it harder, to make it real. Day 1 is activation. You choose the action. You hold the container. You prove to your system that your instruction can be singular. Day 2 is stabilization. You do not look for excitement. You look for consistency. You feel the resistance, and you hold anyway. Day 3 is clarity. Your mind begins to quiet. Your attention stops scattering. You start seeing what was draining you the entire time. Day 4 is response. The micro-alignments become more obvious. The coincidences become more precise. The timing gets strange. Day 5 is momentum. You stop needing to convince yourself. The action begins pulling you instead of you pushing it. Day 6 is identity shift. You realize you are no longer trying. You are simply acting from a different baseline. Day 7 is transition. Your old timeline feels heavy. Not because it is evil, because it is outdated, and you cannot live inside a frequency you have already outgrown. This is the structure. Not because we want to trap you in a program, because your nervous system needs repetition to trust. Your attention needs repetition to stabilize. Your timeline needs repetition to recalibrate. And yes, you will want to stop in the middle. That is normal. The moment you start broadcasting a new pattern, your old pattern tries to negotiate. It offers excuses, it offers delay, it offers distraction. Do not argue with it. Hold the signal, because your future is not built by your best day. It is built by your repeated day. This is why we are doing it in chapters. A chapter is a checkpoint. A checkpoint is a seal. And a seal is what turns a moment into a transition. So do not treat today like an isolated experiment. Treat it like the first step of a sequence you were always meant to complete. If you felt the shift, you already know you cannot go back. You can only stabilize forward. Tomorrow, you will receive the next instruction, not a new action, a deeper calibration, a way to keep the same signal while the environment tests it. Because the test always comes after activation. And when it comes, your coherence will decide the outcome. Type this exactly in the comments. Day 1 is locked. Final transmission. If you stayed through this, it means your field is already listening. It means the signal in you is stronger than the noise around you. And that is not a personality trait, that is an activation. You did not come here to be entertained. You came here because something in your timeline was ready to stop collapsing. Ready to stop repeating the same frequency with a different excuse. You have now touched the first law of emergence. Reality does not move for intensity. Reality moves for coherence. A scattered mind creates scattered outcomes. A divided heart creates divided timelines. A person who contradicts themselves all day cannot receive a clear response. Not because they are broken, because the signal is unreadable. But you made it readable. You chose one action. You held one instruction. You stopped negotiating with your own alignment for one cycle of time. And when you did, the system responded. You felt the internal quiet. You felt the resistance dissolve in places that normally fight you. You felt the strange precision of timing, the way the day began, rearranging itself without you forcing it. That was not imagination. That was calibration. This is what most people never realize. They think coherence is something you do to get a better day. Coherence is the moment you become a different transmitter. You do not chase the future. You broadcast it. You do not beg the timeline to change. You become the instruction the timeline cannot ignore. And there is a reason it happens quickly for you. Because you were already near the threshold. You were already tired of your own inconsistency. You were already sensing that the old pattern could not hold your next version. That is why this message found you. Not because you searched for it. Because your timeline brought you here. The Council does not focus on the curious. They do not focus on the wishing. They do not focus on the suffering. They focus on activation. They focus on coherence. They focus on emergence. And something in you has emerged. Now hear this clearly. You are not going back to the person you were before you held the signal. You can pretend. You can distract. You can delay. But you cannot unfeel what coherence feels like once you have touched it. Because coherence is not motivation. It is a new baseline. And this is where the real work begins. Not the loud work. The quiet work. The work of maintaining signal when life tests it. The work of holding your one instruction when your old timeline tries to bargain. The work of repeating coherence until it becomes permanent. That is what turns a day into a blueprint. That is what turns a blueprint into momentum. That is what turns momentum into transition. If you felt this, you are ready for the deeper sequence. Not more actions. More precision. More stabilization. More activations that build on the same signal you just proved you can hold. Some of you will continue alone, and that is honored. The signal will still respond to you. And some of you feel the pull to go deeper, to move through the next gates with guidance, with structure, with a circle that is holding the same frequency. If you feel that pull, it is not desperation. It is recognition. There is a member circle for those who are called to stabilize this emergence, not as a community for chatter, as a coherence field, a place where the next chapters, the next activations, and the deeper calibrations are transmitted in sequence. You will know if it is for you, because your body will say yes before your mind can argue. And now we seal this transmission. You did not rise alone. Your timeline rose with you. You did not rise alone. Your timeline rose with you.